I love wandering through art galleries. I love art, but sometimes there's just too much of it. My eye flits from one image to another, and it's hard to focus. That's why I've made this short video to accompany our Advent series of reflections this year. We're exploring works of art that depict the Virgin Mary, looking at them prayerfully, so that we can let them speak to us and perhaps hear God's voice speaking to us too. But looking prayerfully isn't always as easy as it sounds, so I hope that this short guide will help us to find ways of focusing. We're just going to look at one picture in this video, but the approach that I suggest can be applied to all the pictures in our Advent series and other artworks too, whether they're religious or not. There are two stages in the process that seem to me to be really important. The first is simply to look at the picture and to see what's there, what we notice, what strikes us, what puzzles us. We don't need to be art historians to do this. It doesn't matter if we don't understand everything we see, but it does matter that we start just by looking. And then the second step is to allow the picture to lead us into prayer. That's what religious art was always meant to do. It wasn't just for decoration. It was there to help people draw closer to God. So first, let's just look at the picture I've chosen for this video. It doesn't feature in our Advent series, so you can count it as a bonus. And I'm going to lead you through a slow, long look at this picture, asking some questions for you to ponder as I do, and perhaps giving you some hints that might help you to focus. In the rest of the Advent series videos, I'm just going to ask questions, the same ones each day, but I thought in this one I'd give you a few pointers. So the first thing we're going to do is just to look. As the picture we're focusing on today is revealed, be aware of what you first notice about it, what your eye is drawn to. I'll give you a moment to think about that. So I wonder what you noticed first. It'll be different for everyone. But I wonder why you think you noticed that particular element of the picture. Think about that for a moment. After that first glance, let's look at this painting in more detail. We could start by asking what shapes we see in it. For example, we might notice those archways, proper solid architecture, carefully painted. It might help to know that this painting, a fresco painted into wet plaster, was and still is on the wall of the convent of San Marco, a Dominican monastery in Florence, where the painter Fra Angelico lived. The archways in the picture are very much like those in the cloisters of the monastery itself. So for the monks that passed this picture daily, it might have seemed like this scene was happening right there and then. And I'm sure Fra Angelico meant them to. Maybe, though, you've noticed other things about the shapes in the picture. Take as long as you want to look at those. Pause the video, of course, whenever you want to. But if you're ready, let's move on together to look at the colours in this picture. What do we notice about them? Perhaps we notice the vivid blue robe that the woman is wearing. Blue was an expensive pigment, made out of valuable lapis lazuli, so it's a sign of someone special. And then there are those splendid multicoloured angel wings. It doesn't show up in reproductions, but Fra Angelico mixed the paint for these with sparkly mica dust, so they actually glitter. But for all that rich colour, the walls are plain and bare, like those of the monastery. What do you notice about the colour? And then, in many pictures, it's worth looking to see what's in the background, the middle ground and the foreground. That's certainly true of this one. Have a look for yourself. What do you see? Look at the left-hand side of the picture, for example. In the background, there's a wild woodland. In the foreground, a neat lawn studded with flowers. And separating them in the middle ground is that very definite fence. It's not an advert for B&Q, though it does look good and solid. Of course, this is a picture of the Annunciation of the angel Gabriel to Mary, and the fence is a symbol of Mary's virginity, a reminder of a quote from the Old Testament book, the Song of Solomon. "A garden enclosed is my sister, my bride." Christian commentators often applied that to Mary, and this feature of paintings of her is often called the hortus conclusus, the enclosed garden. You can look out for it in other pictures in the series. In the background of the right-hand side of the picture, we see a small door leading into a private room, perhaps meant to remind the monks of their own cells where they prayed, as Mary had done, the image suggests. There's one other thing on that back wall which you might have noticed, a small patch of blurred white paint above Mary's head. At first sight it looks just like a splodge, but a closer look reveals that it's dove-shaped, just a suggestion of the dove, the symbol of the Holy Spirit, which often features in Annunciation paintings, because Gabriel tells Mary that it's through the action of the Holy Spirit that she'll bear God's Son. I guess that might have been clearer once, and perhaps it's worn away a bit, but you can still just see it. So that's the background, the middle ground, the foreground, and the things that we notice in them. Another question we can ask to help us as we look at a picture, at any picture, is where the people in it are looking. Is anyone looking at us? Well, in this case, the answer is a definite no. Mary and Gabriel's gaze is locked on one another. Whatever's happening here, it's between the two of them. Even if we knew nothing about this story, we would pick up that we're being allowed to witness something private. Perhaps that column in the middle of the picture, which blocks our view of the space between them, emphasises that. And maybe it helps us to answer a final question. Where has the artist put us, the viewers, in relation to this scene? Are we looking down on it or up to it? Are we a long way off or drawn into the action in some way? The answer in this case seems to be that we are firmly outside the area where the action's taking place, perhaps standing on that flowery grass, close enough to see, invited to watch and to wait, but not to rush in, wanting explanations. Those are some of the things that I noticed in this picture. I wonder whether you noticed the same things or perhaps something else. There aren't any right or wrong answers. Your opinion and your view is just as important and as valid as anyone else's. So have another look at this picture before we move on to think about how we might use it to help us pray. So how might this picture draw us into prayer? Here are some ideas. You don't have to use them all, just pick the ones that work for you. We might try to listen to the conversation we're witnessing, or wait until Gabriel or Mary are ready to turn to us and see what they have to say about it to us. I've always wondered where exactly in the story of the Annunciation this moment is. Has Gabriel only just landed? Has he just greeted Mary? Or is this after he's told her that she's to be the mother of God's Son? I don't know, but I'd love to eavesdrop, and that's what this painting is inviting us to do. Another way into prayer with this image would be to imagine ourselves in the scene. Where would we choose to be? What would we choose to do? What would it feel like to be Mary or Gabriel? We might even try to sit or to kneel as they do to see what that feels like. A third suggestion for prayer would be to ponder what the artist might have hoped we'd feel and think as we look at the picture, and to ask ourselves whether that's actually what we think and feel, and if not, why not? And finally, a way into prayer would be to imagine Jesus standing or sitting beside us, looking at the picture with us, as indeed he is. What might he say to us about it? And what would we say to him? I'm going to leave you to take as long as you like to ponder and to pray as this picture leads you to. And I hope it will help you to ponder and pray with all the images in our Advent series.